Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 35th session of the AIM Prime program. Today's session is case studies on the nuances of scaling technology startups. We have a very interesting panel today, and the panel will be moderated by Dr. Satya Dash, who is ex-founding head of strategy for BIRAC and also ex-director Impact Lab Path, and Dr. Premnath, who is director Venture Center. So over to you, Satya, for the session ahead.
Right. Thank you, Mugdha. As always, pleasure to be here. And Premnath, our panelists have already joined. Some of them are in the mute mode until another 10 minutes. You can switch on the cameras, those who can. As always, I'll start with a quick intro of what we are trying to discuss. This has come after a lot of discussion with Mugdha, Premnath, Anmol, and the team at AIM Prime. We also have somebody joining early morning in the US. So we are spread across the world. I'm in Berlin, and some of you are in Bangalore, Pune. It's just amazing, and all across India. I wonder where is Mudit from, either Bombay or Bangalore, I think. So let's see. I'll share the screen. Okay. Correct. So, we have discussed about how to start, how to get that pot of gold, i.e. money. And we thought we will talk about how do you take it to the market, right? I mean, that's where it really the game begins. And while we were thinking about it, we said, oh, why not we bring some of the top thinkers who've done it. Some of them have done it a couple of times to be with us. I know this is being broadcast live. All of you know about Venture Center, but any from Alpha Centauri who might have logged in and doesn't know what is Venture Center, for them, this is an amazing place in Pune. I don't know how many of you have gone from the panel. I know Yogesh and Aditya are there, but Mudit and Sham, I don't know. So please come over. This is just a wonderful place to be. You can see Premnath on the bottom right, the team, and all the facilities that they are there. If we think about scale, and I had used this quite a few years back, and I love this. We're not talking about fish scale, but somebody I know this morning said that, as an Odia and a Bengali, even you have to descale fish to make it very nice, right? So scaling can have different meaning. The one in the bottom bullet point is the one we are trying to aim at, right? So really either geometric scaling or completely nonlinear scaling is what we are looking at, all right? And we thought about, and Premnath and I and Mugdha, we've been discussing, and this is all about, where do you start thinking about scale, components, how do you think about markets, public markets, private markets, networks, do you manufacture yourself, how do you dance with the distributor, all that. I think Mudit is already smiling about about that. And how do you go and do social media presence and things like that? How do you evangelize your product? All of that is going to be discussed in the next 2 hours. Of course, once you scale, people come in. You're not just 3-4 people company anymore. What happens to your scale within the organization? We discussed about funding in the second panel, but that was early stage funding. We would like to request our panel to throw some light on really latter stages of funding when you're building the product and taking the product to the markets, right? And what is the sweet spot of trying to raise that money? How do you do that? Is there any insights that they can give? And finally, some thoughts. Really thinking about design for scale from where, should you do it before even if you apply for BIG grant and to Three of people, two of them are BIG grant holders. And how do you thread it all together, right? Before I put the next slide of our introduction of panelists, Premna, do you want to quickly come in before I introduce our panelists?
Yeah, first of all, let me welcome all of them. Sham, Yogesh, Mudit, and Aditya, thank you for agreeing to participate. Very delighted to have you here today. Today's session is part of the AIM Prime program. And just to briefly tell you, it's Venture Center is collaborating with the Atal Innovation Mission to try and see what we can do to support deep tech startups in the country. Right, and as part of it, this particular cohort is in some ways a guinea pig cohort. They are getting to see some of the methods that Venture Center uses. At the same time, they have had the opportunity to listen to some experts in the field, learn about various aspects of entrepreneurship, especially deep tech entrepreneurship, and also listen to startups at a very early stage as well as investors. So today, when Satya was chatting with us, we thought, that we should hear from people who have taken the journey to much longer distance. And, all of you have taken it far beyond initial product development. So we wanted to hear from you and learn from you today. So today's session is meant to focus on those aspects. And we hope your insights, your experiences, your learnings will be very valuable for our cohort to learn from, and also make the most of it as they plan for the future. So the intention is, hopefully you will share some insights which will help them plan for a future where they can scale eventually, once they get to a point beyond their product development. So today's discussion, we'll try and focus it on the post product development stage part, and then take it from there. Various aspects of post product development, and feel free to, of course, talk about things which you're passionate about, and and we'll also give a chance to our participants to ask questions at some stage. So that said, I'll let Satya continue now. Thank you, Satya, for giving me the chance to welcome all our speakers today.
Thank you, Premnath. You have in the orchestra, you are the bandmaster. So, you have to thread it all together. So let me, I was making these slides and my daughter said, why don't you use animation? And so she chose this animation. So pardon me, it's a bit round and round. But this is where we are going to discuss about our panelists. All of them I'm in awe of. I'm a fan of all of them. I've known some of them for more than 10 years. Some of them, if I had known for 10 years, they would have been in perhaps in undergrad or high school. But I have known their journeys from the very start. Let me go one by one. I know Yogesh is muted, so I'll introduce from the left to right, but skip Yogesh for the last. Sham Vasudev Rao, Dr. Sham is an industry veteran. And, starting, if you look at his career, he was perhaps doing data science and architecture, and he got his PhD in computer systems from University of Science. And then threaded his way through Philips and TCS, and he was the director of technology at Philips. And then, like all of the panelists, the bug of entrepreneurship bit him, and then he started Forus in 2010. I think I remember meeting him in 2011, yes. And coming to your facility at that time when I was in Bangalore at ABU. And from there, he has become, they've really scaled across geography. I'll let Sham introduce the company about himself later. But the product is Trinetra, and it is detection of retinopathy. And they've also had the US FDA clearance. and looking at geographies across the world. So Sham, thank you for taking the time. I've learned so much from you over the last 10 years, and thanks again for coming here.
Same here. Same here. It's
Thank you,
mutual.
Sham.
Thanks for
Yeah.
getting this opportunity.
Thank you. Next, I will jump straight to Aditya. There are two mechanical engineers here, one doctor. I'll keep you guessing. So Aditya is a mechanical engineer, and then from Pune, and then he went to Iowa, which is by the way, the bellwether state for seeing where the U.S. Elections generally go, right? So if you know where is Iowa voting, you know what's going to happen in the elections. So that's where he did his MS and PhD in biomed and in spine biomechanics. Then spent almost close to a decade in the industry, Globus Medical, and then came back to India, started India's in as spinal implants. Just, I think, close to a year back, they got a US FDA clearance, and he's currently in the US. Again, somebody who has started from grounds up and built a product and taken it forward. So welcome, Aditya, and he joins us somewhere, I forget which part of US he is now. But that is really early morning. So maybe, I hope it is the East Coast, so which is like 6:30 in the morning. Yeah.
I'm in Texas right now, so it is 6:30 in the morning.
Okay,
It's Texas. There you go.
Good
Thanks,
evening, everyone,
Aditya.
and good morning. So thank you very much, Dr. Das and Dr. Premnath, for this opportunity, and look forward to this event.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Aditya. The next is Mudit Dandavati. I mean, Mudit is just energy, and I've known him since right after he probably stepped out of IIT Bombay, spent a couple of years. He's an IIT Bombay mechanical engineering. So there is a connect with Premnath there. So you both are IIT Bombay alumnus. I know Mudit hasn't visited us in Venture Center, so please come along. I think Premnath, we should bring him, and I think Dr.
Definitely.
Sham as well. He hasn't visited us.
Yes.
So Mudit, then after mechanical engineering, he spent in industry in Altair, looking into software and stuff like that, and then started the company. The parent company is called Turtle Shell. I don't know whether they still stick to that name, but the name that is now known all across is Doji. DOZEE, as a contactless health tracker. And amazing product. And I remember.
Sorry, we lost you there, Satya. You can cut off your video. Hello? Hello, Satya? Mukta, did we lose Satya?
Yeah, we are
I'm
not
not-
able to hear him.
Okay, I'm the only one, not the only one. Okay, good. So I think let's just give him a minute. Let's just see if he can make it back. He had two logins, right? Both of them are down?
Yeah, both of them are down. He's logged out right now.
Oh, okay. So maybe.
So I am the one on whom the entire get put the focus and got
And
no problem. As in the
Mudit,
meanwhile, maybe
yeah.
I can fill in.
Yeah.
So
And too much energy for Satya to deal with. Go ahead, Mudit. You can introduce yourself in the
I
meantime.
think he was saying, so I come from IIT Bombay Mechanical Engineering, batch of 13, and with a big interest into race cars, actually. So in fact, even at IIT Bombay as well, I made 4 full-scale race cars, then created a cricket bat in my 3rd year, which, it was the interesting thing was when the ball hits the edge. So instead of going directly to the wicket keeper, we introduced a downward component of velocity, right? So thereby making it harder for wicket keeper to catch it. So we actually licensed that to then Sledgenzer. So it was my first exit venture And then I started as, Satya was telling about turtle shell technology, or DOSI, which is a contactless patient monitor. So what I thought was, working a lot with race car technology, I really wanted to create a healthcare where, it is not governed by wires, electrodes, and patches. So if we can just make healthcare as easy as just sleeping on the bed, right? And then everything is happening without even touching the person. So that's what we created. Now we are scaled to almost 250 hospitals across India, and looking to go even beyond as well. So quickly scaling up. I think that's what the session is about. So we used to be not more than 10 hospitals about 4 to 6 months back, and now we are in more than 10,000 beds right across India. So that's how we are growing. And so over to, I think.
I think Yogesh now. Okay, thank you very much, Mudit.
Pleasure
Thank you
of being
for
here, actually.
yeah.
Really amazing. So I have followed journey of Dr. Shyam, right? So I have always seen him and followed him, and really a pleasure to be with him, Dr. Satya, you, right? So and other
Thank you.
panelists as well. So really looking forward to it.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. And it is, I hope Satya joins in quickly. he loves his early slides. So, so let's have Yogesh talk through his. Yogesh, can you do a quick introduction, please? And you're in. I think you visited us once in Venture Center. Am I right? Yes. Yes, Satya, you're back.
Yes.
So Yogesh is doing his intro now. Sorry, you're on mute. You're on mute, Satya.
I'm sorry. It just got conked off. But I think, I wanted to finish with Mudit, and Mudit just raised 6 million just a couple of months back. And so, welcome Mudit. And finally, of course, my good friend again, Yogesh, he's the real doctor here. After his, MBBS, he wanted to spend time in IIT Bombay. So that's where, he started being with the engineers and management, and then they set up BioSense, which was in 2008 and 2009. And all the way with early stage investors, like I think Incitor may have invested in you, then Wilgrow, Mentera, and then finally having a deal with Tulip, a couple of years back. So that's the journey of Yogesh and his co-founders. So that's where we are, and welcome Yogesh again. Good to have you.
Thank you. So thank you, Satya, for the introduction. Yes, Prem, I visited once when Uday Patke was taking entrepreneurship, I can say mini course.
Yeah.
And I feel that.
Sorry, I think your signal is poor. Can you cut off your video? Sorry about it.
Am I more audible now?
Yeah, it's better. Yeah, go ahead.
So I still remember that Cadbury which I won for one line pitch.
Okay, good.
So coming from that, we were scaling, we were raising funds, and last year we really experienced what scale is. We hit our first 100 CR in the I think I would love to share more on how we did. Yeah, thank you for having me.
So Yogesh, your signal is weak. Can you see if you can find a better place where your signal is better?
Let me check.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I think, yeah, I think this is better.
Yeah, this is definitely better. Okay.
Sure.
So, welcome to you as well. Let's get started. Okay. Satya, do you want to get the ball rolling?
Yeah, let's just get started. I think, there was a amazing nugget when Yogesh said that, we really saw scale last year, right? So that just tells you when we are at the early stages, what scale means to us. vis-a-vis when they are, when startups or when companies, not even startups, are at the stage where Yogesh is hinting at. So let's start with what does really scale mean to you. But before that, if you could give a couple of minutes of introduction of your company, product, and then what is it that scale means to you? That would be a good Kickstarter. Shall we start with Shyam and then Yogesh and then Mudit and Aditya?
Yeah. Can I also request that while you discuss through that, can you run us through a little bit of the more of the journey after the product development stage and some of the twists and turns during the next stages through manufacturing, early sales, scaling process, and so on and so forth, please. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you for giving this opportunity. It's great to meet our friends here. I've been seeing them or I've been hearing about them, and because of the COVID, we have not had the opportunity to visit your venture center. I would love to do that ASAP. So basically, I've been doing this entrepreneurship for a long time. Actually, my first company I started in '89, and we made a product called Knox Card. And there, we had a fantastic opportunity to scale it up. We had, more than 8,000 cards we had sold. And then to further scale up, we became the OEM partners for HCL Computers and Sunray and so many of these computer PC manufacturers those days. I'm talking about 89, 90s. Okay. A lot of them might not be born also at that time. Anyway, the journey of healthcare and startup again, as Satya was saying, in 2010, I started this company called Forest Health. And we decided to scale it up at the time when we were going for our Series A funding. And that's a very good moment in 2013, 2014. A lot of funding used to happen for medtech, and then some of the things we did was to set up our own manufacturing, actually, which was really a thing which we had not really thought of, that we will get into manufacturing, but that was something we did. And in some way it worked also. Regulatory was really another big issue, but at that time we got the C certification, and that really helped us scale up, because once you get CE, you can actually enter a lot of most part of the world, actually, except China and maybe USA, where you need FDA. And in other places, it's all self-declaration and all those sort of things, which actually helped us to get into not only India, soon we could get into more than 26 countries with our product. And that 1 year, I would say, 2014-15, we did a lot of sales. That was really a very wonderful thing. And then in 2015, I started this company, Renal X, for renal care, which is much bigger lead times and all that, Class C device, and also little downturn in the markets, and then that was a different ball game. And here we decided very cautiously that we should not get into manufacturing, because the machine is quite complex, and the facility also what you need is a one. So we got BEL, as you all know, Bharat Electronics, to partner with us, taking the technology transfer, and they are now scaling it up to 6,000 machines in one shot. Okay, so there will be a lot of these government hospitals and all that, where they have a direct access to the market, the government market, and they will be in a position to scale it up and the order minimum quantity what they have assured us is 6,000 in the next 2 3 years.
Mhm.
So that has already started now, and then we also see that manufacturing, because we decided not to go for manufacturing in this case, it was good for us because we want to be our manufacturing partner, and they will
Mhm.
also be in a position to sell it to the government sector. So we are also for the private market. We have other reasons which we will discuss as we go. So that is how the scale up journey, and we cannot get a better place than BEL to manufacture this complex device and get the scale.
Mm.
So that,
Yeah. Okay. So I think we will continue. Let's hear out others, and then we can. Then we have a lot of questions, of course. So Yogesh, you're next. Can you speak now? Let's hear if.
Sure. So, for scale for me means that it overwhelms your existing infrastructure, system, processes, regulatory things. That is what I understand about scale. So if you are building a facility for 10,000 units of something, your next scale should be something which overwhelms this system, and you are bound to build the next one. And
Yeah.
this is applicable for each department. So it is for your sales, it is for your product, it is for your regulatory, it is for your market expansion.
Yeah, Yogesh, the sound is still quite poor. I did hear you said that it when it overwhelms your current capacity and activity, that's where you're scaling, right? But can you see if,
Let me.
yeah,
This is now better.
yeah, this is better. Yeah.
Yes. So I was saying the scale is something which overwhelms the existing system and infrastructure. That is what the scale for me means. And going from 1 crore revenue in 2015 to 100 crore revenue in 2020,
Mhm.
what we have understood is this is a constant process. This is not something that you build something and it will work forever. So you have to redo everything every 3 years. That was the case in at the case of Biosense. Maybe some of you might need to do it quicker. Some of you might need more time. But the key components which I see for the scale is first the capability in the team, whether they can really match and handle that scale. Second, whether they have the resources, and not from the perspective of only investor, but do you have good distributors? Do you have good partners? Do you have, when it comes to, let's say, serving bigger orders?
Mhm.
So can you get advances from them? So building all of this network and things like that, where you are part of that ecosystem and you're building your pillars and support for your ecosystem. You're buying those NOS cylinders. So you're building those NOS cylinders. When you see that there's a long run straight ahead, you just hit that. So that's what we did at Biosense, where when COVID hit and before that, so we went from directly 1 crore to 16 crore and 16 to 100 crore.
Mhm.
And the key component was we didn't get scared of it because it really scares you in first 6 months.
Mhm.
Because everybody's burned out. You think that you cannot do this. No big company is doing this. How you, being a startup, can do this? So uh, that's what I think I have to say for scale. We do a lot of hemoglobin testing in India. So we have done 3 crore testing, and next year we will be doing around 18 crore people who will get tested on our hemoglobin testing systems. That is our key product. We also did a lot of COVID-based product because of the acquisition which happened in 2019. We already had some access to COVID products like VTM and like those things. So being a startup, we were very fast to scale that up and really monetize on the earlier phase of the COVID.
So Yogesh, is your company currently sort of a division of Tulip, or is it a standalone entity?
So right now it has been merged in Philip Diagnostics, and it is called division of Philip Diagnostics.
Mm-hmm.
But and this is of the parent company is Perkin Elmer Group, which is based in Boston.
Yeah.
And the way this company operates is really wonderful. That they let the founders run the company as it was. Just the ownership is there, and of course, then there are different structures which founders are benefited financially and things like that. But what that is the current CEO is Indian, Prahlad Singh, and he understands India, and he appreciates Indian entrepreneurs who are trying to build medical device companies, startups in India, because he knows how hard it is to build it here, and especially when it comes to taking it global. So I think those things I would also credit some part of a luck to be associated, because once you have the access to such large resources, whether to bid for that tender, whether we will be able to supply, whether we will wait for 3 months for that payment, all these questions which mostly the entrepreneur spends time, especially if you're a government supplier, are gone.
Yeah.
So
yeah, your nature of worries just change, right?
Yeah. So that is yeah, that is it. And I would love to speak more when the question answer rounds are there. So I'll stop here.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so I think let's go over to Mudit now. Mudit, tell us your story, especially post product development and how things have shaped up. It's very exciting to see what's happened in the recent past.
So, even answering Dr. Satya's question, that what is scale, right? So, for me, it's a very simple thing. Basically, at every point, whenever your supply is, not able to match the demand, right? That is the point of scale, right? And that is how it basically needs to be, and not because your supply was suffering. That is not scale. Basically, your supply is, full and intact, and still, you are not able to meet the demand, right? That is, scale at any given point, in a very, philosophical understanding of it. And now I'll explain you that, how it has happened. So, for us, basically, it was a very interesting journey. After product is developed, there is always, some time where a business needs to establish a product market fit, right? And this needs to be done in a way that, you have, and there is something, a concept called as high HXC, right? Which is a high expectations customer. And you really need to create them, right? There needs to be, some set of 100, and you need to define that. No one can do it for you, because changes from industry to industry and the kind of nature of your, product. But it needs to be either, 100, 200, 500, 1,000 people, a very niche kind of a way in which, who can't live without your product, right? And that is the kind of level where basically you need to reach as soon as your product is basically ready. So there is one very specific use case in which your product just changes the game for the industry, right? That is something which needs to be achieved, and it takes, some good amount of time, good amount of iteration. It is about, what is the last mile fitment you do with the product, last mile fitment that you do with your pitch, last mile fitment that you do with your operations as well, your customer service, and so on. When this is refined, right, then the product is ready for, what we know as scale, right? And that's where we come to it. So now there is demand in the market, and now, when it becomes basically what you are able to achieve, the outcome, the sale becomes the function of pure money, right? That's where, you are ready to scale, and that's where any investor, anyone would love to put a lot of money in that, right? When you become a machine, that, if I put $100 bill inside it, after some time when I rotate it, what comes out is a $500 bill, right? That's what finally any business needs to get to. And that's where it becomes investable, and that's where people will then put in million, billions. Then it is just a number, right? but it is all about how much this machine can actually consume, right? What machine is made for of 100,000 can only just take up that much itself. Beyond, if you start putting inside that, it will just blow up, right? And that's, I think, one part of the question. At each point, how much do you want to raise, or how do you basically go about managing managing a fund raises, right? How much you should be raising, if you know the answer to this, right? How much your company as a machine can digest right now. If I put it X, where it can reach, if you know that answer, you are ready, you are very investable, and anyone who is sane would like to invest in you. So for me, in a simple way, that is scale. Coming to the story of Dozy, for us, after we achieved, we stabilized the technology, we proved that without even being contact, without having to even contact the person, we are able to very accurately get biomarkers from under the mattress. That was almost like a magic. So then we started going in the market, understood different use cases, and for us it was ward monitoring, home monitoring, for post-op discharge care, burn patient care, and so on, right? So we then started experimenting with each, making these high expectation customers, making sure that there are first set of 10 hospitals who love our product and are ready to recommend it. And then in no time, then we scaled up from 10 to 250. Really, as I mentioned, just took us about 6 months, and now our target is to get 2,000 in next 6 months, and upgrade close to 250,000 beds in next 2 years, right? So upgrade 250,000 beds into step down ICU. And I'm saying that when in India, we have only 100,000 beds, ICU beds, which are monitoring today, right? So I'm saying in 2 years, I'm going to more than, triple the capacity of India, right? And that's the kind of, scale can really help you achieve that, right? So that's the target and how we are approaching that.
Yeah, very exciting. Aditya, do you want to go next?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I'm Aditya Ingalalikar, founder and CEO of India's Medical. We are developing and manufacturing implants for spine surgery. We are a multinational company now, and I'm proud to say that we are India's first spinal implant company offering US FDA approved products in India. And the whole vision of India's Medical has been to develop world-class products in India and kind of mushroom into a global company, starting with the India market and then focusing on the US market and then the rest of the world market. For me, great inputs from all the other panelists. For me, what scale means, and taking into account the intent and the listeners that we have today. I believe an entrepreneur should, to me, scale means having a vision of where we want to go. Typically as tech startups and entrepreneurs, our focus is product related. But in my mind, it is extremely important to delineate, if at all possible, really think through right at the inception that what is the market that we are trying to capture? Is it India centric? Is it global centric? Is it certain geography centric? And then what is the scale in terms of whether it is number of, in our case, it is number of surgeries, number of hospitals, number of patients, and what is the scale that we really want to reach, and let's say a dollar or rupee value associated with it. To me, if as an entrepreneur, if you are able to lay that out right at the inception, then that kind of becomes a blueprint in terms of understanding, okay, then what are the, starting at the back end, what's the kind of team and the level of team that I really need. The second part is, what is the supply chain? As Mr. Rao said, whether it is you do your own manufacturing or you go with the supplier route. And if it is the supplier route, then how many suppliers am I going to really need? Where are the suppliers? Who has that capacity to really, if I'm India centric or whether I'm global centric, what is the kind of capacity of suppliers do I really need? The third one is, where is the distribution and sales network that is going to come from to really scale to my endpoint that I really want to reach? Whether it, again, what are the networks? Do I have them available in my own network, or do I need to hire those related people who are going to help me achieve that kind of a sale? Because I mean, as tech entrepreneurs, we're all experts at our products. We can do a great job developing those products. But to me, delineating that end goal right at the inception, and this is extremely important, because again, that helps you kind of, I mean, to me, it is, if you think big initially, then you kind of know what to expect going forward. Because if you kind of think small initially, and then suddenly you start to, again, there could be individual situations, but by and large, to me, it is important to lay all those factors out initially. I mean, in our case, regulations are also extremely important, and probably a lot of tech startups do have regulatory, concerns, whether it is CDSCO, whether it is US FDA, whether it is CE. Again, it ties down to what Mr. Rao was saying about, right? If you get to CE access, you get to a lot of markets, except US you don't have access to, or maybe a China. With US FDA, it is the same story. You don't have access to the EU market, but you can get access to the rest of the world. So kind of laying all of those things out, because that is also going to help you determine what is the level of funding that you really need, and what is the exit route, whether it is IPO, whether it is mergers or acquisitions. As Dr. Yogesh Patel has said, that they've had a great acquisition story over there. So all of those things, again, these things, as you go through the journey, new things will pop up, and you'll always want, like, nobody expected COVID, right? And how to go about sustaining our ventures. But to me, scale means laying that out. And as an entrepreneur, not just having your eye on the product, but also on the market side of things. That is one part that I would say. The second part also, as a company, is the structure of the company, as to, again, coming down to, and especially medtech, and it's very much true for medtech and biotech. As far as companies and startups in India are concerned, we are still not there. I mean, billions are invested. You see all the unicorn stories coming out, that have been, you see in economic times, but that is all happening on the software side. I mean, unfortunately, I have to say there is very little investment happening on hardware side, which is where all the money really needs to flow. And again, that will happen. But what we as entrepreneurs can do is, what is the structure that is there, as to what is going to give the best bang for the buck for the investors coming in. So laying that out at the inception is also an important part of the entire story. And again, these things we are not going to learn in colleges or university. That is something as we walk the path. But that those are, to me, important parts in terms of what means to me is scaling. Because the rest to me are the details. Yes, understanding the suppliers, and as we grow, how we manage it, what to bring on, and so on and so forth. I would be happy to share those during our conversations. But two things, I mean, having the vision of the scale, where do you want to go? Where do you want to take your company? And your, who's going to invest and all of that. And then second one is the structure side of the company, which is going to enable you to basically go there and reach that goal.
Sure. Thank you. So there were actually some very interesting different perspectives. I mean, different, but of course, all lining up together. Aditya, you talked about the large vision that makes scaling possible. And I liked Mudit's argument about the machine, which turns out, actually, I do talk about it in my very first lecture, where we talk about, at the end of the day, business is about creating value from, adding value to resources, and that machine is what you're aiming for at the end of the day, right? So I like Mudit's very clear description of scaling over there as well. Also, there was this idea that, when you run out of the infra and the processes and the organizational capability to meet demand, that's when you scale, right? That's another view. And of course, sales as a clear indicator of scaling. So I just want to take one step back a little and request you to talk through the transition point, where first of all, is there a transition point? Is there an inflection point between going from pre-scale up to scale up? The second is also, when do you know that scaling, it's ready for scale up? So for example, some of you talked about the scaling unit, right? The unit which can be multiplied, like Mudit said, you can put money in and more comes out, and that you can keep doing it on and on, right? So that point, that transition, when do you know that it's ready, right? And what indicates, in your case, what were the points at which you knew that was it a real clear transition point, or was it a smooth change? And also, you could have considered scaling in multiple ways. So did you have to make choices? For example, if one product line of yours is really creating the demand that say Yogesh talked about, would you just go with that, or would you also broad base your growth and scale up? So a few points like this, if you can address. So maybe I'll reverse the order right now. Aditya, maybe you can go first.
Sure.
Yeah, and before you do that, there is a great question along the same line, Premnath, whether from Shailen Devyakarnam in Cambridge,
Yeah.
whether scale is in phases or is it a continuous concept?
So just to quickly add that, to me, scale is a continuous concept on multiple fronts. I mean, whether there is one particular inflection point, there could be situations. But to me, it is also, I mean, for example, in our particular case, we started off with initially, I mean, we kind of got the bitter pill right in our first 6 months of our company. We had started working with a global multinational supplier, and you wouldn't imagine, but in 6 months time point, and we had laid out all our market plans, everything, and goals, everything. And in that first 6 months, that supplier shut down. So one of the first things that we realize is that you can never depend on one particular entity, whether it is suppliers, whether it is distribution. So for a business to continuously scale, and that is where knowing the vision is extremely important, because in our case, we basically developed a backup of a backup of a backup. So you want to have, whether you are right now scaling or not, so today we started with 2 hospitals in India. Now we are in 100 hospitals across the country. We are now in hospitals in the US also. Our products have been used in more than 1,000 plus patients between India and US. The point is that as an entrepreneur, as an entity, to be afloat and to keep on progressing, whether it is your own manufacturing capacity, it's similar. If you have your own manufacturing capacity, you want to always continuously think, okay, I have 2 machines right now. 6 months down the line, how many machines do I need? And then the associated capital. It's the same. And it's not even whether I'm going to see that number or not. Tomorrow, what happens if that machine shuts down, right? It's the same story of suppliers. On the supplier side, it's not whether I really see myself going from 2 hospitals to 100 hospitals. Assuming that you would go that route, but the first backup plan is what happens if that supplier decides, oh, okay, I'm tired now, I want to retire, or there could be practical problems of life. So it is important to think about scale, even in terms of sustenance standpoint. Growth is, of course, that important aspect, but even from a sustainability standpoint of where you are currently, to me, it is important. So there is, to me, no particular inflection point. There may be, but from a scaling standpoint, it is important for a company to keep on thinking in terms of how do I grow my resources? How do I grow my, in terms of, you said whether it is one product related or multiple product related, right? I mean, to me.
So Aditya, did you standardize your product and saw that there's enough traction to grow, or is it a continuous sort of effort to find different product lines and definitions to sort of what is the customer offering to keep addressing more and more demand?
Our particular case in our industry, we cannot be a one product company. We have to have a multiple product line, and we call it a full bag. So our sales reps need to have a full bag, right from skull to lower back. Like I cannot say that we just have we make implants for the neck. That doesn't cut it. We have to have the entire product portfolio. So yes, I mean, in that particular case, it's not just a one product thing. We have to have multiple product lines in our business.
Okay, so is there a unit that you define which multiplies much faster in amongst your customer offerings?
So in terms of the product lines, there are certain products which are fast movers and certain which are not, sometimes certain which are a low volume. And that is something that we know beforehand because we know the market in terms of what surgeries happen most. For example, low back surgeries happen the most. So we kind of know that. So our focus is on increasing the resources for those particular product lines. And of course, as the market picks up, we get to see that as well.
Okay. So Mudit, let me move over to you. Tell us, when did you identify your scaling unit? The, the $100 bill which you could put in and churn out the $500 bill. So
That
tell
was
me.
an example. That's the dream, right? You
Yeah.
take doesn't happen that easily.
Yeah.
So more important is it doesn't happen by the way. So let me correct it over there.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that overnight you have created a machine with $100 or 500. It's something that when you put 100, actually only 70 comes out, right? But then 70 starts increasing to 75 and 80 and 85 and then increases 100 and then goes beyond, right? But end state, it can go to 200, 250. That's why you are working in the correct direction. So that trend is important, that it is in rising direction and it is increasing slowly, right? So that's the reality. By the way, I'm just correcting myself
Yeah.
since I
Sure,
had
sure.
time to think about it. So yeah, so I would say when you have validation for it, very simple answers again. When you have paying customers, that's the validation. That's the only validation when it comes to it. And this I am saying from a lesser experience of being more into a B2B product kind of a thing. In B2C it takes time. B2C there can be a proxy of it. The direct payment might not happen right away, but then you have other proxies of it to change, check it, right? Your reviews, downloads, and number of things are there, right? But anything, you set your own North Star, but basically, you keep on following that. And it, sometimes happen. Eventually, it should become a dollar, right? For sure. Then otherwise, you are not doing that. So that's, that's how that, it is ready to be now put in more, right? Second thing, which I just mentioned as well, that, you had made one infrastructure, but now it has started faltering. Not faltering, but it is just not able to give you more when
Yeah.
your market is demanding more from you.
Yeah.
And that's where then you might require an overhaul of your infrastructure. It might be from you need senior people now, right? You need better manufacturers. You need to move to a different set of technologies. And for that, now you need to pump in more, right? So this is, your second validation to it as well, right? And these two are like, leading and lagging indicators. The money part will happen later, but this thing you already start seeing that your customers are liking your product and everything. If these things are there, you know that you can start switching the gears now. So that's
Yeah.
it.
But when you look at your product journey, at what point did you think that you were ready to sort of transition from freeze your products a little bit, at least good enough for the time being, and move on to really selling and selling at scale?
Correct.
Was there a transition? And also one more temptation many startups have is that they try to look at multiple use cases, right? Versus going with one that seems to be making money, right? And scaling that up. What is your advice there also?
So see, in that, now, two are very related, I would say. So one is, how that, when that, right, is basically so your first set of customers basically help you refine the product. That's the truth.
Yeah.
When you have refined the product, you really need to be in the market just validating your hypothesis. This is the whole hypothesis at the end of it, right?
Yeah.
So when you created one hypothesis based on feedback from one customer, and you change few things and everything, and now that customer is happy and hopefully has started paying you. We know that doesn't happen that easily, but say hopefully that has started happening. Now you took the same learning and without changing a lot of things again, you sold it to second customer, and then 5, then 10. So now your product is frozen after a point, right? That is how it happens.
Yeah.
If you are required to just customize product every time for a new customer, you are I don't think that is a
Yeah.
frozen product over there, right? So it's not ready for scale in my opinion, because it's very human resources centric still, right? You need to put more people, and that can also be a model for many other businesses. Again, I'm coming from a very one set of mindset that I have, which is more technology driven. I'm not talking about a human intensive businesses over here, right?
Yeah.
So because, I really believe that, only when it is backed by a lot of technology, it can be hyper scalable. My, very strong opinion on that, but just talking about that part. Your second question was basically, one product versus many product. How do you do that? I think, your brand is created by one product first, right? So you really need to put your energy in that, right? And really make it a success, right? Rather than spraying and praying, you really put your focus on making sure your one product is a big success. Once you have that, you actually end up spending a lot of money in trying to create the brand, right? Then of course, to now you have the doorway, you have foot in the door of places. Now you can always stretch the dollar with your more product line, right? But second needs to, follow. It can't be your core strategy. Your winner is always one product, in my opinion, at least if you are not in a pure distribution business. If you're just taking from one place and giving it to another place, then that is the case. If you are holding the IP, then your one product is your brand, right? And then second product onwards, it becomes the stretching out dollar. That's how I know. Again, very as an I come from limited experience of what I do, right? So please.
No, but I think it's a lot more experience than many of us. So great. So let me move on to Yogesh. Yogesh, do you want to comment on the same topic? Was there an inflection point? Was it a continuous scale-up process? And also, when do you know that you should just focus on scaling, and freeze your products and not keep tinkering around with this or more use cases and so on? Is Yogesh still with us, Mugdha? Looks like we lost him, is it?
Yeah, he's not. I
Oh,
can't see.
okay. So Shyam, I think I'll request you to take it now.
Sure. I've seen totally a different perspective when it comes to the scaling of products which are more, in the healthcare space, and more if it is getting from class A to B to C to D, the whole process is going to be very different, because getting an acceptance and getting the market to buy our product compared to the ones which are an established market for a long time. However good our system may be, still they may want to compare, and then cost is not the factor I see when it comes to more complex devices. Like for example, dialysis machine or a ventilator. They want to see that it's the best one. And always somehow we in India, being we are some of the pioneers in this, we also have a disadvantage because nobody trusts our own products. Okay. So situation, what I see is the way I have been working is, when we had the ophthalmology device, which is a class A device, it is a non-invasive and all that. But it had a totally new concept that you are trying to get a whole lot of things, into one machine, the Trinetra, which we have, where it does the anterior segment, posterior, all that. From a textbook point of view, it looks wonderful. But when we entered the field, we saw that, well, there are different type of specialists. And these specialists, the retina specialist is totally, he's only interested in retina. And he says that for me, it is useless. If you're giving me the cataract grading, cornea imaging, and all the refraction and all that, because I don't deal with that. And then if you go to the other guy, he will say, I am not interested in the retina. Because you put the retina imaging feature in it, now, the cost of the machine has become high. You see, these sort of things. So when we try to visualize this in a closed room with our engineering bent of mind, we see that, hey, it's fantastic, get the doc in a box, like, get an outpatient department of an eye hospital in a box. That's wonderful. Okay, let's do it and all that. But when you talk to them also, when you are trying to get the inputs from the decision makers, as what we have been taught, right? It is not that you need to take the input from the decision maker who is going to buy, who is going to give you a purchase order, who is going to put the money on the one. They will see, yes, because they are seeing it from the hospital point of view, integrated version, right? So they feel, yeah, this is fantastic. So if I have one, I know I can use it for so many things. But then when it goes to the real users, it may change. So these were the things, which we saw was a bitter experience, as one of our friends also, I think, Vidit or somebody told, right? And that is when, quickly we had to retract and see, how do we try to project this? Where do we position this? That was the whole thing. And that's how, we try to and adjust our whole offering and try to see how we can position it in a different way and see how this can be done and how this can become the product which we can beat the other products so that, the competition is not there for this unique device. So this is what we did, and that's how we of course spent a lot of time in conferences and these every ology. We have the national conference, and then we have regional conferences, and through that, we try to make this the thought leaders to talk about it, and that was the thing which actually made a difference. Otherwise, getting a totally new product or a totally differentiating thing and not getting the market acceptance, and market acceptance don't come overnight. That's something which we have to see. So that's where we really have to put in effort. And then, we also see that the product positioning, pricing, everything changes with the volumes, and also with the position you have in the market. You start getting bulk orders if you are actually doing the right thing. And then if you are still hanging on to your local vendors, local suppliers and all that, you will never be in a position to get the price advantage, at the same time, get the volumes as well.
And
So
deliver on
we
the
have to quickly
products.
switch. You can't deliver on the promise, yes. So
Yeah.
we have to switch to the main suppliers, the OEMs and things like that. And that was something, which we learned in the process. And whatever we had actually done manufacturing through contract manufacturing, we had to change over to our own manufacturing, because the OEM suppliers don't want to actually share their response to the contract manufacturers. So there are a lot of complex equations and legal issues and all that, which actually crops up because you want to get a special price, you want to get a special treatment, and we are definitely, when you are starting, even the numbers like hundreds or even 1,000 is not a big thing for the main manufacturer. So
Mhm.
that sort of thing. So this is also something which I see in when we did these dialysis machines, and it was extremely impossible for us to get the prices down to the level where it is made attractive. So that is where, we had to see how to take a big leap in this. If I'm having people who are talking about it, they are saying, okay, fine. And they want to buy them. When it comes to making a decision, they'll say, okay, what is your price? Okay, your price is much higher, or it is almost as close as the imported ones. So
I can see
why should we
Aditya
go for it?
smiling
This
there.
sort of a thing, right? So these are the things. So for which, we had to do a different approach altogether. So come what may, let me put my effort in making big numbers, and then, we will get the price advantage, bring down the cost, and then start to push the product, even if we are taking a little bit of beating. But luckily, we found the thanks to the Atmanirbhar Bharat, whatever, BEL, one started their medical electronics division, and then they took the responsibility of taking the technology license from us for manufacturing purpose and scale it up. So that way, we have been quite lucky, I would say, in this aspect. Otherwise, it was not an easy thing. We had to get a lot of working capital and do this. So these are some issues where
Sure.
we still don't have an ecosystem for scaling up. I might have the will to do it, I might have the funds to do it, I may have everything, but the ecosystem should also be ready. So when you go for a complex device, like, for example, I have 212 parts, 2,000 parts in my machine. Okay. So you can imagine that there is no ecosystem. A lot of it, we have to depend on China. A lot of it, we have to depend on the Western markets. And these are the supply chain problems which will be making our scaling up very difficult.
Yeah.
So the best is to do it in India.
Mm-hmm.
As far as possible, try to get things which are indigenous. Some of the critical things, at least in the initial is one, don't try to play around with it. It is best to go for a imported one, get the best stuff. Like, for example, in a dialysis machine, the valves are the most critical ones. I get it from the best supplier from Germany so that, it doesn't fail. So that sort of a thing. So there is this balance to be done. Okay. So that's very important.
Sure. Yogesh, are you back online now? I think, Yogesh, can I request you to unmute?
No, he just texted me that he's trying an alternative arrangement to get online.
Okay. Yeah. So the Satya, you had a few other points which I thought we can just quickly run through with others, if that's okay. Right. So just wanted to ask you also, at some point, this is chicken and egg problem where you want to freeze your designs and move to manufacturing, and especially in regulated products, you're going to invest quite a lot of money in getting your certifications and regulatory approvals and so on and so forth. And at the same time, you don't know whether it's going to sell or not. Right. And so it's sort of like a vicious circle. And if you try to change your designs later, it really costs you a bomb, right? So at what point did you start to sort of design for manufacturing, and at what point were you sure that you wanted to do that? And also, are there any best practices relating to quality management or regulatory approvals or manufacturing partners that you want to share with us? So I think I'll request Shyam to go first.
Yeah, this is a very interesting point. And also what I see is that initially when we have made the prototypes, and those prototypes obviously, will be using some sort of rapid process. And they don't give you that type of finish and all what the market expects. So it is very important for us to see how to get the first customer on board and see how to lock them in and excite them with the sort of a special arrangement or attention, whatever we can give. So for all my products, what I have done is in Forus, we made around 5 different products. For each of them, I have from the beginning itself, we have an engagement with a thought leader or a KOL, key opinion leader. And my one is clear that the KOL is going to give us the feedback. That is what you call it as the usability feedback as you're developing, so that you use the Whirlpool model. And at the same time, he or she is going to be our first customer. Mm-hmm. And they're going to buy our device. So that way, so that is the first thing. So we stabilize the market, device, everything. But of course, manufacturing we would have done with a limited scope or with a limited resource, where you may not have the injection molded fine finish shell and all that. Then once the installations, you have a couple of installations and you have already in a position, the KOLs are in a position to talk about the product in all the forums and all that among their peers. Then we get a feedback already that, oh, why, what is, how can you give us this product? What does it cost and all that, and tie up with some of these dealer distributors, but particularly those who are in selling the adjacencies. We are in ophthalmology, so there are people who are selling a lot of ophthalmic products, but they don't have this product. So try to get them on board, and then we also invest on these uh, tooling and all that, and get the good product. They look and feel and all that, and also incorporate all the feedback, user interface feedback, whatever we had, UX, and from that we try to get the good product out, and that has to be in scale. So that is what I adopted in ophthalmology, and in the nephrology also we have a similar approach. But what we see is that in this last 5 years or 6 years, there is a big change in the manufacturing processes which have come. So it's something we have to keep on following up. And today I don't need to have very expensive tooling for injection molding. There are something called vacuum forming, there's vacuum casting, and so many of these which have come, and that can be scaled very in a big way.
Mhm.
So
Sure.
here I am adapting those techniques so that I don't have to go for a huge capex to make these final finished products. So that is something which is very important, because manufacturing is also changing very fast, and 3D printing and all have become very useful, because we don't have to have entirely 3D printed output the product, but in the intermediate stage, like tooling, for example. Today you see, earlier days this tooling was done by 5-axis CNC machines and all that, but today they are done with 3D printing, metal 3D printing, and you can at one shot itself get it first time right. So that is the thing. So
Sure.
that has
Yeah.
the number of spins are reduced.
Yeah.
So
Mudit,
those are
yeah.
techniques we adopt. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Mudit, do you want to tell us also at what point you decided that you were ready to go in for the whole hog through regulations and approvals and getting the proper manufactured product out, and I mean, was there a turning point, or how did you decide on that turning point?
So, very important question. So, thing is that regulations is also, is not a one-time job. Actually, in all the matured, companies, QA, RA, right? So RA becomes a very important position in itself in the company, especially if you are going for like, quality as in process certifications like 13485, 27001 and so on, right? ISO certification, that is.
Mhm.
What we have to understand is that regulatory is a very important part of the product development part itself, right? Number one, if you incorporate that right from inception, right, it is most of the things are very logical, right? So they are not entirely aligned. So while you are developing the product, if you just tick off these boxes, right, then your regulatory journey is not a complete overhaul, right? And that's how the plan should be. So you always should know right from the inception, when you are developing a product, what are you need to have an opinion on regulatory right from start itself, right? So that you can always plan for it. Then go for basically whatever is the minimum regulatory approvals that you are required to get into the market, right? So not spending a lot of money and then going with whatever is the minimum required thing, and this is just one strategy, right? Going and then establishing the product market fit, and then when you are going for scale up, right, so at that point now regulation is also a brand, right?
Yeah.
So at that time, then you really need to invest heavily into regulations, right? Because if you are not doing, then either you are leaving the scope for any external one to now come up and ruin your game what you are developing. So you need to ensure that you are at the top of the pyramid. or top of the food chain in that way, right? So you need to then invest in regulations for brand, right? So regulations therefore come in two ways. One, to cover your legal liabilities, one thing first, right? As in, if you are not in the minimum regulatory framework, then you can't sell it in the market, right? Or you are then going to attract any kind of legal penalties, right? So first thing first, you have to cover that. Then second one that you are going to do is when you are going to make it as a brand, right? So that is going to be the second wave of regulation, and then it becomes a continuous process. Then you are not going to stop at just Indian, but you also want all the international ones. Even for Mars also, if there is regulation, you want that to happen.
Sure. Aditya, when did you decide for your US FDA and I mean, was it something which you had right from the beginning in mind because of the nature of your product, or is it something which you thought, it's time now to scale into the US?
So we had it in mind right from the inception, and this goes to my original part where I talked about, what is the scale and what is the vision that you want to lay out for your company. So we had it planned out right from the beginning. One of the key things is that the DFM, the QMS, all of those things need to be taken into account, especially for medical devices. When we are into the implantables, so regulations are even a lot more heightened. And those need to be in place right from the beginning for any kind of startup, unless you are still at a very early R&D phase, where you still don't know whether this product is really going to see the light of the day or not. But the moment you start seeing that, all the DFM, QMS need to be in place. And depending on whether there are different classes of devices also, right, in medical devices, whether it is class 1, 2, 3. On the India side, it is A, B, C, D, and as those, depending on the classes of devices, the complexities increase. So there could be various ways. So for the less complex or the classes, you could have plastic prototypes made. But for the higher classes, right, where the regulation requires that you make a fully manufactured product and test it, there is no way, but you want to get into you have to do that entire run of manufacturing, right? As if you would make it in production, make those devices and get those regulatory approved. And that being the path, there is no escaping that. So especially as a medical device company, understanding which bracket you lie in and which devices lie in which particular class of devices, that will determine your strategy as to what strategies you will employ from an investment standpoint, whether it is plastic 3D printing is okay and good enough, or whether you need to have a fully manufactured product. And then the third part is, in our particular case, to kind of make sure that there are no mistakes that happen, right, later on. For each of our products, we have something called as design team surgeons, because as engineers, we cannot just develop products in vacuum. So we typically have, as Shamji was saying, in our case, we have 3 to 5 design team surgeons on each and every of our products. And these are the surgeons who are kind of the voice of the customer of maybe, the market out there. And we kind of select them basis their particular expertise in the field and what they bring to the table in terms of that particular expertise. And that helps us, that the clinical insight is given by them. We do the labs also. So once we make this, whether it is a plastic 3D printed prototype or whether it is an actual product, we do something in our business, something called a sawbone labs or cadaver labs, using that product on dead bodies, getting that feedback, which is the customer feedback. And then only we launch those products into the market. So by that time, and again, of course, no product gets launched into the market is perfect. There is still live feedback is different. I mean, doing something in a lab is different than what is going to happen in the actual operating room. So there will always be feedback, but these kind of initial, physicians become our kind of feedback mechanism also, and that helps us to keep on refining the products. So in our particular case, we do alpha launches is what we call it, wherein we do a mini launch instead of going all out, right? I mean, we don't go all out now. I want to enter into the India market. We kind of go with, okay, where are our pockets? Where is the alpha launch that we want to carry out? Because so then it is kind of more of a regulated feedback that we get. And then we kind of go ahead and invest, make those changes in the products, and then invest on a mass scale. Yep. So that's the process that we follow.
Do we have Yogesh now? Yogesh? I think there is still a problem, is it?
Yeah, he hasn't responded back to me.
Okay. So
So
perhaps we can continue further.
can you
You
give
can go ahead,
one more
please.
shout out to Yogesh just to see? No,
Yeah.
no, he seems to be on the Zoom, but I think it's just uh, but he's not there.
Yeah. Satya, do you want to take it to
Yeah,
the
I
next
just
segment, please? Yeah.
before we jump in, I think there are two interesting questions. One by Harish Chandrasekhar that I think Sham and others, even Mudit, touched upon, and that also is part of our list of checkboxes we want to hear from is manufacturing excellence. So Harish is asking, what Sham mentioned about perception of quality of Make in India, and how do you overcome that? How have you overcome that? And you may have the regulatory stamps. That is one thing, but the perception is sometimes beyond regulatory stamps as well. So how have you done that, Sham, Mudit, and Aditya? And if Yogesh is still there, then Yogesh as well. Let's start with Sham because that was your comment, and then we'll go to Mudit and then Aditya.
Sure. See, this is a very important one. In India, we do have a few contract manufacturing facility for medical device because, as you know, as we are all going through the CE or FDA certification, the manufacturing facility should also have this ISO 13485 certified place. Only there we can manufacture. So that type of facilities are available in India, and we are lucky that there are a couple of such companies here in Bangalore and Mysore, particularly, and that is one thing from a regulatory standpoint we get. But then more than anything, what we see is that the industrial design, which is very important, and while we are starting our product, right from the inception itself, it's good to involve these people. Thanks to NID Ahmedabad and all who have set up such wonderful design skill competence in this country, and there are so many companies offering this service. So I have also been advising people, even though you are a startup, from the beginning, you always take care of this. Have a good industrial design people, ID people who can help you with getting it this. So ID and regulatory, these are things, from the beginning itself, if we have, we can actually manage. And definitely our products are no less than any imported product. So they look very nice. And I'm sure you might have seen that. So that's one thing which we have always
Okay.
learned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sham. So yeah, sure. Involving the industrial designers from early on. Mudit, how did you manage the perception one? Because again, going back to Trinetra, it looks beautiful. The design component is good. Same with Dozy. What's the how do you play the perception game there?
So, one I would like to say that even, till date, Dozy is 100% made in India product, right? So basically, first answer is it's entirely possible in India. So Shyam did mention, Bangalore. So yes, even in Bangalore also, right? And at a lot of other places, now we know Chennai, then Pune, these centers, thanks to a lot of efforts, including you, Dr. Satya, a lot of efforts which have been put in. And see, thing is that the boost that healthcare industry has seen, so the auxiliary industries have also seen the basically the gap over there, and they have come over here, right? So it's possible over here, and it is always good to start locally, because what happens is, even you are going to learn a lot. This is first wave of scale up, and pure manufacturing scale up. When it happens, right, you realize a lot of changes that you need to do from a DFM point of view to make it really manufacturable in itself, right? That is one thing. So as local as possible, the first one especially helps. But after that comes a point when your the local one, it's always good to have more. So while one local one is you're always a back of your backyard lab where you'll keep on making new products, your generally a more stable one will come where on a phone call basically you can, and that's again a dream. It takes big efforts and time to reach there, that you can just give a phone call, transfer the money, the initial amount, and you get the packed products at your office or directly dispatch it to client. This entire cycle, when it becomes a clockwork, you aim to reach there as a supply chain, right? And it takes a lot of effort in doing that, right? It takes almost 2 years at least to perfect this entire thing, right? And there also comes a one time when you want to then supply it to world. Then you need to even think beyond India as well, right? So there is always a time for when to shift that gear, right? And you should only, in my opinion, do it when it's time. Doing it prematurely, sometimes you end up burning a lot of cash, money, energy, resources, right? So it should only be done, and again, as I started, it is entirely possible. The second thing is, you mentioned about managing perception and going beyond even certification. Definitely, that's important, right? Clinical trials is definitely one, way of doing that. We all are into healthcare, devices, pharma, molecules, algorithms, right? Any of this today, the way you are, so regulations is like a necessary tick box. But what is the second most important tick box is what is the quality of your clinical trial. And in that there are again 4 or 5 important points, including which institution you are doing it with, what is their brand in first place, then the study that you are doing, is it registered, is the IERB approved or not, properly it is done or not, it is double blind, single blind, right? What is the quantum or the size, what is the demographic population data that you have taken. So that way basically it becomes the second very important point. Again, clinical trial also at certain point for a medical device or molecule or pharma company is a full-time role, right? It's never that you just get it done and then you can roll it out. You always need to, as you are scaling up, you need to scale up the trials as well. Because as soon as you do it at this point, someone will say, oh, you had done only in public setting, now do it in private. When you do it in private, you have only done it in South India. What about North India? When you have done it in India, you have only done it in India. What about entire Asia? When you have done it here, then what about America, Europe, right? So it's always it keeps on upgrading as well. So yeah.
Story of the life of an entrepreneur. The goalpost keeps shifting, right?
Exactly.
Okay. By the way, Satya, I thought we could just move to see the
before
next
we
three.
do that, Yogesh is back in. Do you want to just shoot quick questions to him, Premnath, that you wanted to extract so that he then gives his insights, and then we move to the next.
I thought we'll rope it in the next segment itself, and he goes first, right? So we wanted to discuss a few key elements in scaling, right? And of course, money is one of them. The sales and marketing distribution networks is another one of them, and the third is the people and the organization itself, right? And we wanted to sort of get inputs from you on some of these aspects. So let's start with the money itself. So Yogesh, while you were away, we were talking about the scale up process, especially manufacturing and so on. And one of the things that really bugs many entrepreneurs is the need for it's such a task in jugglery where you're trying to get everything right on time, right? In the sense, it's all about timing at the end of the day, right? You have to have money when you want to scale, and when you want to scale, if you need to have the facility in place, if everything if something take, or the regulatory approvals in place, and so on and so forth. So it's a matter of jugglery at the end of the day, and getting everything right on time. So what was your experience, Yogesh? How did you manage your getting the funding and getting the scaling and all of this timing right?
So we always focused on anticipating that when will we need more funding, and we miserably failed at it. We always needed it because we always underestimated
Yeah, sorry.
the.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I think there was some disturbance. I was just wondering if it was behind
So
you or it was somebody else here.
I think you should just raise enough funding which will last you for 24 months minimum, because what in my experience, if you are lucky, your funding cycle would be 4 months. If you are unlucky, it would go and stretch beyond 6. We had unique cases where one of the founder wanted to live in uh, the middle of the round, and that got investors scared. So I think your 24 months cash flow with some buffer, with some experienced person who can tell you that USFDA will not cost you $10,000. It will cost you probably $150,000. Depending on your product, it might also increase. So with that, along with the timelines also, matlab, we always assume that we will have your USFDA or European C within 3 months, 6 months. So these are usual entrepreneur timelines. So correcting ourselves with the because we have very few companies who have got these certifications in India. There are very few also to tell you that how much time it exactly takes and how much effort it will take. So that is one part where you can ask a lot of help. You can get in touch with, even don't mind getting in touch with sophisticated companies who are doing well in this domain. uh, I'm sure if the top boss is not available, that manager who wanted to be an entrepreneur in his day would try to help you as much as he can, because he will take that pride, saying that I helped that entrepreneur in doing that. I did that with Philips, one of the regulatory head of Philips,
Mhm.
uh, uh, and I could see why she helped me, because it gave her sense of fulfillment, which she is heading almost 80 countries filing, but I think she enjoyed guiding me more. So I think that is the part where you have to know that what you don't know, and simply just ask, go who will know that, find that person. uh, don't keep any boundaries no matter what. uh,
So perhaps one solution to managing timing is to plan for enough funds in advance, right?
Absolutely.
Then, uh, how about scaling your manufacturing? How did you manage supply
So
chain,
we
suppliers? And at the very beginning, sometimes all our startups struggle with even getting the first things done because it's just too small for it to interest anybody worthwhile, and at the same time you need to have a good quality product to show and get tested and so on. So how did you manage that?
So I think you need to have a shipping date. And for shipping date, you cannot just have an arbitrary shipping date. For that, you should have a purchase order.
Hmm.
So you should say that my capacity is 1,000, even though if it is 100, and get the order of 1,000. It will you will eventually figure out how to scale it up. And
Yeah.
that's how it works. I don't think that arbitrarily you can just say, okay, I want to make 1,000. You will take 9 months to make that 1,000. And if you take the order first, if that positive pressure is there, your sales guy might have to work towards the point that maybe he will need to manage a customer little bit more, and probably tell him that, sir, this is something which you are helping us as a company grow, so we would like you to be little accommodative with us, little bear with us little bit, like that. So I believed in this approach only, because we never achieved our milestone in scaling up. If we want to build 10,000 device factory production per month, I actually had to get a 20,000 device order which needed to be supplied in 60 days to figure everything out. I think that was my approach, that put the order, put the purchase order, put the customer need in front and scale it. Because
Yeah.
uh, if I ask you to write, let's say, 10 pages of essay, you might take 2 months, like Satya is doing in Berlin. I don't know how much time he's going to stay there. I'm really jealous of his statuses. Or you
so
can just
so
finish it off in 2 hours. I
yeah.
mean, that's it.
So a purchase order in front of you and fire at the backside to scale.
Absolutely.
Okay, agreed. So, Mudit, do you want to go next? Tell us also about how you're scaling your team as well, besides arranging the funds and
First, I have
managing all of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
First, I have a question for Dr. Yogesh. Are you in IIT Bombay roaming around? It looks like a very nostalgic background over there.
I'm actually at Hopkins. I was just negotiating a contract which we won.
Very awesome. So congrats on that part,
So
right? Always. So
behind Hopkins Kharidi Kaksha.
great. Awesome.
Okay.
So
Good.
congrats on that, right? So आपकी जो खुशी है वो दिख ही रही है, right? So we know how the meeting went. So nice. Premji, I think you were asking me questions. So right.
Yeah, my question was more about also, if you can also comment on how you are managing all the jugglery, especially the people, because you have to scale the number of people as well, right?
Hustling.
And while you're doing all the money raising.
Right. So hustling on all of that, I would say, right? So right now, I think that is one of the problems entirely. Everyone is tech, including government. We are competing with everyone now.
Yeah.
So, right. So I think, see what needs to be done at the end of it, what sells, right? You can't always, especially when you are starting, you can't match the industry rates and everything, right? So at certain point, you can do that. You can even exceed that as well at one point. But basically, what happens, you really have to sell your vision. So having the vision first, you yourself knowing that why you are doing this, you are putting a important time of your life into that, right? So you typically know the vision, right? And that's exactly what you have to sell, right? And that initial team which builds up, who can then replicate it for you, becomes very critical. After a point comes when scaling up in people also, when it comes, so initially each and every person is working for you by name, right? Then there comes a time where rapidly it starts exploding. You don't know who all are working for you and things like that. There is one thing that creeps up in that is you have to let go of certain level of control, right? At that one point, that is one very important part. And then what are the kind of processes that you set up, including induction programs. Then your culture building becomes very critical in that time, right? So all of them become very critical point. What you stand for as a founder, right? Do all of your people actually know about it, because they are working for it, right? So how do you ensure all of that to happen? Right? What your company stands for, right? What is no go as a company for you, right? What are the ethics that you follow, right? So all of that then becomes something which you need to formalize, one, and then also ensure a process in which it is transferred to each and every person, right? And that's how basically it starts scaling. So see, at the end of it, scaling, it starts from hustling. You just learn things on the go, you stabilize it, you create a process, and then it becomes a machine. That's true to every field that you can pick up. Even here also it becomes almost similar to that.
Yep. So, roughly speaking, I've seen till you're about 20 or 30 team members, you're very close to everybody and you're able to spend time with everybody. And the moment the next level of leadership kicks in, you have to let go. And it gets.
Give you example, right? So last 6 months, not just we have grown in that. So we were in one city 6 months back. Now we are in 35. We used to be a 30-member team 6 months back. Now we are 200. So, when scale happens, then it really explodes. And, every month now we are hiring more than 20, 30 more people, right? So it really, goes very fast. So better, you have all the things in place, right? When it starts to happen. So,
yeah. And typically many startups have this allergy for processes, but without processes you cannot scale. So I think that's an important thing that you pointed out. Yes, Satya.
No, that's Mudit, I just want the panelists and also you to reflect. You said something very interesting. I noted it down. One is let go of control. Second is culture building. and you're saying that you've become 35 places and 200 people and peer group. And I think, also when you bring in new people, your co-founding peer group changes. So you may have been in an MTech undergrad or PhD, then all of a sudden you're bringing in salespeople who may have been 20, 30 years experience, if possible, right? So how do you tackle these three things? One is letting go of control. Number two is your peer group changes in terms of the experience that you bring in and the experience that your new employees, quote unquote, bring in. So quick 30 seconds from you, and then we'll go to Shyam and Aditya and Yogesh.
So, letting go of control, I would say the way of doing that is trust but track, right? And the way of doing that is basically, you trust everyone you hire, right? You definitely don't doubt any one of them. But there are processes like, customer management, so CMSs and, your field management softwares. So all of these processes start to come in, right? And that is the way you basically build that and put a governance structure in place, right? So that your entire organization, even though you are not tracking each and everything, but you ensure your end customer is happy with what you are giving, right? So that is how it happens. So I think that was my 30-second are over.
Thank you. No, great point. I think that's letting go is one of the toughest things. And Shyam, what do you think about those 3 points?
Yeah, and also, Satya, I wanted to request Shyam to also talk us through a little bit of scaling associated with government orders and interacting with the government. Okay, so after he finishes his 30 seconds, he should talk about that as well. And maybe Aditya can tell us about scaling sales, especially when KOLs are involved. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, on that point, both Shyam and Yogesh, because how do you do government sales, nuances of that, and Mudit also mentioned the step down ICU beds that he is talking about. That's also hopefully through government as well, I guess, or is just so. What are those headaches like?
So let's start with Shyam. Yeah, let's start with Shyam. Yeah.
So I had just one point also on the funding while you are scaling. The problem of funding becomes a little difficult at that point because equity funding, you would not like to dilute yourself too much for working capital requirement. Because for scaling, what you need is manufacturing, and for which you need a working capital arrangement, which is much bigger, and one cannot go for an investor and ask them to take equity. Then you are selling yourself very cheap. So that is where we have to play around with debt funding, where we might have to commit to something like higher IRR and discount factors and things like that. And there are these various tools like CCPS, OCCPS, or whatever, compulsory convertible preferentials and all that. So there is a balance to be drawn between how we are going to get this funded, because there are certain non-banking finance sector, and those guys fund only debt model. They don't go for any equity model, right? So this is something which I have always seen that is a very tricky situation, and then they would come in as a regular investor, or they may exit when the funding round happens for equity in the next. So that sort of a thing. Then coming to the government sector, yeah, I think Yogesh and me have all worked with this huge promises of the government, like preferential market access, PLIs, and all these stuff. And we have all ended up, in a place called Andhra Metric Zone, just for the greed of getting government orders. But it has worked. It has, at least, I should be happy. For me, it has worked. I'm sure Yogesh also got that advantage. And that was one of the ways And that is something which is becoming more and more relevant, because there they have to promote Indian products, and there are certain mechanisms and there are certain policies which are coming in, and that is one way of handling it. The other way of handling is the PPP models, and there is a little bit of risk involved, and there is a lot of compromise also there. So you have to partner with some bigger players or with other players and form a public-private participation, and through which we have now Andhra, Karnataka, and Kerala. We have such big PPP projects in which we are the technology providers, and then we don't get paid in the beginning. We get the money as and when they get more and more customers, and it's one. If you want to get paid at the beginning itself, then of course you have to take a big cut, and these are sort of tricky situations. Fundamentally, you need to have a partnership model. That is the only best way to handle the government orders. So
And
with that, we are
do
doing
you
that.
also need to
Yeah.
have very deep pockets to take care of cash flows?
Yeah, definitely. That's what I mean. If you are not having deep pocket, then you have to really give a lot of discount or sell it at a. You should cut down on your profit, because the bigger brother who is going to run this, he is going to fund it,
Yeah.
and obviously he is going to really, bargain and get a. So that's
Yeah.
the thing. But it is possible, and I think these PPP models are going to grow in a big way, and it's not going to make huge profit in terms of this one, but the volume will give you a bigger turnover. Okay, you
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
a good top line, but a little smaller, thinner bottom line.
Sure. Yeah, Aditya, do you want to talk us through also how you grew your sales and marketing and distribution efforts, especially into the US as well? And what does it take to scale that up, and how do you manage all of that? What are some tricks of the trade to manage timing? I know with all this, you have to also continuously manage your funds. You have to continuously manage your manufacturing. So at least some parameters you must have kept a little steadier. Perhaps in your case, the manufacturing side was a little steadier. Probably you had enough capacity to deliver, right? But on the other hand, you had to grow for probably much of your efforts would be directed towards sales and marketing, right?
Right, right. So on the manufacturing side, we have had a steady approach, and because of earlier planning that we had put in place. But on the sales side, the way we have scaled, I mean, we started off with distributions, because it is always about, sales and marketing professionals wherever in the world, they don't come cheap. So the question always is that whether you want to add the fixed costs upfront or give a higher commission upfront and take a lesser revenue. So the model that we adopted was that we went the distribution route, of course, where you have to shell out more money, but you get the revenues going, because the market relationships of the distribution channel partners is already there with whichever products they may be selling. It is about you selling your own product to those distributors and then having a line of marketing to the customers or the direct customers as well. So the way we did it was that started the distribution route first. As the brand of the company started to get built, as the money started and the cash flows improved, then we started to hire direct sales reps, because now the end user had more trust in the brand of the product. And as that grew, we started to go direct also. So today, I mean, we started with a full distribution model to now we are a mixed model where we still have distributors, but we have our own sales reps also, where we go direct. Because what happens is the moment you get direct, as long as you are able to sustain the monthly burn rate of their salaries and everything, you are going to have more money in your pocket in terms of revenues, because you're not going to pay the higher commissions. That is the kind of scale up we did, going in from distribution and then started hiring our sales reps. That's what we did in India. The same model we are adopting on the US side as well. Because yes, I mean, unless you have a lot of funding that comes in, and where you can go on a hiring spree. And even if you have the funding, I mean, my kind of my experience-based thought process is that you always want to have, early wins with things that are already there in the market, invest your money into R&D, get more products approved, and then build your own sales force, essentially. So
And does anything change if it's very KOL intensive in sales and marketing for you? Because that does seem to cost a lot of money sometimes, or appear to cost a lot of money. And also, there are big players in the field investing considerable resources in convincing KOLs.
Right. So the way we have kind of gone about doing that is the KOL side is more on the getting help on the R&D product development side. On the sales and marketing side, we don't really go that route because in our experience, to us, every customer is an individual, right? So just because somebody is saying doesn't mean the other person is going to use. And yes, the bigger companies do invest a lot of marketing money in terms of events and all of that. But the approach that we have taken is that focus on the customer, focus on the product, whichever customer may be, and kind of as a young company, right? I mean, to me, one of the classical not mistakes, but the perception is you always want to go for the top doctor in the country. Well, everybody is wooing the top doctor in the country, right? There's hundreds of doctors who are unknown. The business can come from anywhere, right? It's about you selling your product. So, and there is a lot of market gap on newcomers, doctors who are not doing anything, or they are not up there, who their names are not getting flashed as the best doctors in the country because they're just beginning their careers. So the way for a young company to go after the market is that, I mean, whether it is early stage physicians or whether it is experienced physician, every physician is 100%. And so we have not gone the route of spending a lot of money. Of course, we don't have that kind of money to spend on marketing, and kind of doing KOL events and things like that. But we have kind of kept a steady approach, make the product right. Every customer is important. Go after the people who need attention, right? The bigger companies are not paying attention to, because the money is the same, whether it comes from the top doctor or whether it comes from whoever. As a young company, that is the approach that we have adopted. Essentially.
So Satya, maybe we can turn the direction to now a little bit on the investment side, the board relations and exits and so on and so forth. So I hope Yogesh has not run away now, right?
I'm still here. Don't worry.
So Yogesh, tell us a little bit about investment rounds. How what are the perceptions, what are the relationships with investors? How do you manage board relationships? Where the situations where we've had some situations where sometimes investors say, oh, these guys are not yet prepared, even prepared to sort of engage at the board level and so on. Did you have any such situations? How helpful was the board? How helpful were the investors? How did you take the company to an exit?
Yeah, and then there is one thing, Yogesh. So you raised early on, and then you got acquired. So just the learnings of how the board was at each stage of your company, and whether there was more nuanced way of approaching the board when you had raised at mature series, right?
Yeah. And also you had an impact investor, so that also, did it change anything? Yeah, go ahead.
So having completed the circle, what I would say is your first investors would be more of they would bring more connections. They would probably not be very field oriented investors. They would probably miss some of your board meetings because they're very important. Because I'm talking about angel investors, and that would be your first investor. Because since he's an angel, he will have a different source of income and on which he will focus. You are his moonshot bet. So that's what I would assume. And that's what usually happened with us. So we had some of my angels were Vijay Shekhar Sharma of Paytm and Dinesh Agrawal of India Mart, like that. But I don't expect them to give me any advice because they are at a different level. I have to get enough maturity to understand what they would say. So we didn't bother them. On a later stage, when impact investor came in, uh, it took us some time to break their dilemma of SROI and things like that. We said, okay, we have to survive. If India, we are able to sell and test people for hemoglobin, which they are not doing right now, we would believe us that that impact will be there.
Yeah.
And on
Yeah.
that basis, we convinced them. But
Yeah.
they were
SROI being social
social return on
investment.
investment
Yes,
frameworks, which
please.
they
Yeah.
use
Thank you.
as an impact investor, right?
Yeah.
Which is very difficult for a startup to track. I mean, how do you track your? I don't know. So the only argument was if uh, it would lead to a betterment of somebody's health, and that is going to create a very strong social impact, which was deniable. So we survived that question. Later on, when Mukesh came in of Mentera, he came in more of a since, of course, he did not had a healthcare background, but he had a very structured processes systems background. So he tried to implement a lot of those systems, processes, analytics to track customer profitability, product profitability, things like that, building newer products. So taking those decisions. So like that. So these were three different, and you have to be approach somebody when you are ready to understand the advice of that person. So if you have raised, let's say, $200,000, talk to a guy who has raised $2 million, $5 million as a consider your 2-3 years ahead of the guy as your peer learner. And don't approach somebody who has raised $50 million because that guy is going to talk different language. You might have access to him and you might want to click your photo, put it on Instagram and things like that, had a wonderful conversation, but you're not going to understand anything. But that guy is thinking at different level. And admit this. I mean, there's no shame in this. You will come to that level when you raise that next round. So these are my learnings from the board and things. Sorry,
How did you move it to an exit in the sense how did the company move towards an exit? What were the triggers and what were the opportunities that you leveraged?
So we never thought we would exit, and that thought actually scares me now when I think we actually never gave a serious thought that we are going to exit. Uh, so when we were raising $5 million round, and one of the investor already had sold $100 million company to Perkin Elmer. So he asked me that, have you guys considered if we want to acquire you, what is going to be that number? And we said, okay, we actually never gave this case as a thought. So give us a day. And we came up with the number. We inquired about those guys. They liked us. They told what their plan is, why they want young tech entrepreneurs like us to be part of their team. And they paid us handsomely. So whatever number we said, it was non-negotiated. So we were happy doing that. So it was just a round which went to the acquisition. That's it.
Yeah, it was initiated by the entrepreneurs or by the investors, your investors.
Sorry, could you please repeat that?
No, the deal was initiated by the entrepreneurs or the investors?
Investors.
Yeah. Okay. So the investors initiated a discussion for their own exits or for the entire acquisition?
For the entire acquisition, because they only operate in that way.
Okay. Okay, great. So let me move on. Thank you, Yogesh. I'll move on to the others
So
also.
my key take for the last point is,
yeah,
have your number in mind ready, because you might need to give it in a day. So always keep on tracking your number.
Yeah.
Whatever you believe, I mean.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mudit, let's hear from you as well in terms of how has your engagement with investors been? How have you found your investors? How did you locate them, identify them, make things work? Did you see a big change in board dynamics between before the investor came in and after the investor came in? Did you have to do a little more of presenting your case and strategy in more detail? Would you have some advice for people who might be getting into situations where they're raising money?
Correct. So I think, I'll start with how do you locate the investors? Like, and ideally, you want like-minded investors who really believe in your vision, mission, right? And are invested in this and have patient capital, right? Most importantly, in the kind of businesses I think we are talking about.
Yeah.
So you need to really identify them. And again, now it's not very difficult to do that. You have all the data on VC Circle to, everything Crunchbase, where, your kind of companies who is backing, right? And who are the other competitor investors, right? It is very likely that someone who has just invested in your competitor is not going to invest in you, of course, but their competitor would love to invest in you, right? So it's a market like that. So you have to really pick up that way, and then have a great case presented to them, in which, as I mentioned, you need to really present yourself in that way that, see, I am going this, I was set to do this trajectory, and I am doing that with so much efficiency. If only I had access to one thing, which is capital, I could do this at 4x, 6x, 5x, whatever that number is, right? Something like that. Or I am at X scale. If only I have access to capital, I can go to 10x, right? So something like that, that case, when it is created, it is very investable. Everyone would love to invest in that. There are always then validation, due diligence process is fun, especially the first one. So make sure all your papers are in right? Because otherwise you might have closed a deal with the investors, but basically your due diligence is going on for 6 months, right? Then it doesn't help anyone. So ensure all of your, the compliances which are there, the statutory and legal compliances, or your agreements, everything is, placed properly, so that you can go back in time and, get all of them.
Yeah.
After, your first institutional round, it becomes a clockwork. Then it is very easy. And typically they only suggest you what all to do, right? So that your basic hygiene is maintained. But first one is, little tedious in nature, especially if, in our case of business, when, we generally raise up and are ready and really investable after 4 or 5 years, the backlog is just that much more, right? So longer the tail, bigger the problem. Second part in this, the board, right? It's really fun as long as you are doing well. It really, sharpens your skills as well at a certain level, especially if your board is very participating. It's not a town hall speech, but, everyone is over there. There are some basic hygienes. You also, as a founder, your basic job is also to ensure that your board is always very excited. This is the meeting that, they are waiting for every month, right? Then it becomes a big fun, right? You have lots of surprises, and always preserve happy surprises in the board meetings. The bad surprises you need to tell upfront, right? And before the board meeting, and so that you can manage that. But there are surprises and all those, right? So you manage it that, right? And then it becomes real fun when everyone is participating. And, everyone is in that together, right? Generally, that is the case. So, if there are any problems, right, use your board as kind of a bouncing board, right? At least I do that. So I always, I am on a WhatsApp kind of relations with all of my board members. So in the morning, we can catch up anytime. And then sometimes even, my investors, they just love to get some updates, and they are feeling low. So they'll just call up, tell me something good. So then, then you have some things to tell about them, right? So then, it really becomes a very encouraging relationship, right? And in fact, in our case, I'll tell you, basically, we raised our first institutional round in September. Then our internal investors itself, we raised our Series A. So we didn't had to. So I basically presented a case on how we have grown so much in last 6 months, and now it is the time for us to scale. And when I presented to the board was like, Mudit, you are doing a phenomenal job. Basically, we don't want you to waste your time in the field. So, we are just writing you the check. So you don't need to go. So my Series A was done in less than half an hour, right? So, that is, what happens if you are managing that relation that well, right? I know even now as well, if again I have to do a fundraise, my half fundraise is going to just happen like that because everyone wants to be invested in us. So, that's, I think, slightly longish answer, but yeah.
Yeah,
How-
no, that's very appropriate. Aditya, you went in for angel investments, but you also have been exploring, since in your kind of business, there's also a need for foreign investments. You're trying to think through that as well. So maybe you can talk us through it. In the meantime, I'll just request, Mugdha has requested a group photograph. So I'll just request, Mugdha, did you want Yogesh also there, or?
Yes, yes, I think so.
Yeah, please. Okay, let's have a shot. I'll request. So who's taking the shot?
I'll be taking it.
Yeah, please. Yeah. I think Yogesh, you're having too much of a ball.
Yogesh promised me to, take to Machu Picchu when they got acquired, and now with the Hafkin, he has texted me that he will take me to Singapore. So that's.
Yeah, please join in.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go to Macau, I would say.
Yeah. So Mugdha, tell us when you do take.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm already clicking. So please keep on smiling.
I'm really happy today, so I can smile a little.
And we are happy for you, Dr. Yogesh. So yeah, we'll keep our smile.
Congratulations, Yogesh. Yes.
Yeah, I think we are done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks,
good.
Mugdha.
Thank you. So over to you, Aditya. Your, how. And by the way, you have the pleasure of managing a very large number of investors. So you have to tell us how you do that.
Right. It's a pleasure. I see the sarcasm there, but yes. So I mean, our entire route we have taken is the angel investor route initially, and majority of these have been strategic investors from the industry, and again, most of them from the US within my network. And now this is the first time actually that we are going for a VC round essentially. And in our case, I mean, the hiccups that we had has been kind of explaining, because people don't know the medical devices. I mean, the investor ecosystem on the India side did not know or does not know the medical devices industry as such, and especially on the spinal implant side. So all the conversations had been, great in terms of team is great, everything is great, you guys are solving great problems, but we don't know this industry. So those were the challenges that we faced. And now we are raising money in the US, because US has been, that is the main area where a lot of medical device investments happen. It is a much mature ecosystem as far as our industry especially is concerned. I mean, of course, we are still open to investment from all across the world and India too. But those are the challenges that we face, especially on the VC side of things. And that also goes to show our profile. I mean, on the angel investor side also, majority of the investments came in from the US side.
Yeah.
So,
but it must be great to have a lot of industry sort of people really betting on you and your team. So that I think was definitely a plus.
Definitely the validation that veterans and people more senior than us who have been in the industry for 25, 30 years, they have invested in us, and which helps us during our meetings when we talk to the VCs also. right? Because in terms of the kind of investors who have come into the company, managing, of course, the investors. One thing that you pointed out, it again, majority of these investors are angel investors, high net worth individual investors who have put the money in, and once in a while I'll get a call that is my money growing. That's the text message that I'll get. But other than that, they don't really kind of get into the nitty gritties of running the company, or there's no regular meetings that I need to have. Of course, the yearly update is sent to all of them, and that is much appreciated in terms of what rounds have been happening, what progress we are making, and all of that. So
yeah. And what are their priorities in terms of even when you made the pitch to them, what were their top priority items, and since what do they expect out of it?
So expectation, I mean, the excitement that they have that this is a global company. In general, healthcare costs everywhere are increasing, right? So one of the biggest bet that they are placing is that we have a US and India presence both, wherein only US centric companies today, I mean, profitability becomes an issue because costs are continuously going down. The prices are continuously going down, but the costs and everything continues to go up. That is the thing that they are most excited about, that we have a global presence. And the exit, I mean, the expectation, of course, right? I mean, it's the whatever largest exit. I mean, one good thing in our case is that they are not looking, I mean, nobody is breathing down my neck that, oh, 5 saal mein, where is my money? They kind of know what it takes for medical devices. Typically, it's a 10-year journey as far as our industry is concerned, and just historic, whether it is IPO, whether it is M&As, or anything like that. So 10 years is what spinal devices industry to come to mature, to grow that much value. So investors also know. And one of the key things I'll say is that that is where finding the right investor is very important. Because for example, a company like us, I mean, we have had great investors and people who have said, hey, this looks great, I'll put money in, but can I get my money back in like 3 years, right? Unfortunately, I mean, though we want the money, we cannot really do that because, again, medical devices, the gestation cycle is more the approvals, the regulatory approvals, getting into the market. It just takes long, and kind of there's multiple inflection points. So that is one thing that we have to really sell to the investors, is that how really medical devices grows, right? I mean, one of the things I think Mudit and Sham mentioned was the revenue generators. In medical devices, actually, you don't want the revenue generators because the early inflection points are a lot of the regulatory approvals. So that is something that we have to convince the investors, because that's not a very cookie cutter model. And especially investors who invest in IT and SaaS, because the revenue generation, B2B businesses, revenue generations happens a lot quicker. In our particular case, depending on the class of device, class 2, class 3, then there's clinical trials, and so on and so forth. So that is something that we have to really sell to the investors if they're not from the background.
Sure. So maybe Sham, I thought you could also discuss some of those themes. But one other thing I just wanted to request is, are any of you thinking of IPOs as an option? Is that even an option in India, or is that something which is very far off? So, Sham, how about you?
I think now there are a lot of companies going for IPO, and particularly medical device. We see Scanray in Mysore. They have already filed for the IPO, and they are expecting a very good this one. And there was Krishna Hospitals or Krishna
Diagnostics. Diagnostics. Yeah.
They went IPO. It was oversubscribed. So there are this one. So that is not now. I think we are also looking at how to just as one company, we may not be in a position to solve the nephrology problem. So we are looking at partners with whom we can now work together, and then the whole basket goes IPO. That sort of a thing.
No.
So 3 years down the line, we are maximum time what we are fixed is for this is 3 years. So there is a very good chance now, because the market is also going up, as you all know that there is share prices are going up, and there is a demand for medical device, and so that is how we can take something from India, and to the rest of the world. That is going to be a big thing.
Yeah.
And going with this, the how to find our investor, I think in the angel investors, because we had a lot of friends and all that, and as such, when I started these companies, I was already 50 years with a lot of experience behind me. So there were a lot of good friends, who were prepared to invest on these things. But then when we went for the Forest investment, we did one thing that we tied up with the investment banker. So on a success fee model, and the investment banker, Unitas Capital, did a great job both in Series A and Series B. They were the ones who did the entire management. They did right from the pitch deck to everything was prepared by them, and they will do the first level of pitching and then filter those who may be more promising. So that was how it happened, and that was really a good one. And for a very small success fee, you get a big service because they can get you good valuation. So that way, you see that is a big thing.
I think you also raised money internationally in that round, in those rounds, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, through the investment banker.
And Asia Health Fund, and then Team Fund, and so many of these guys. There are a good number of them. And then the problem also what we see is that initially, they're all very excited about it, and they were all fun. But if you see big investors, for them, the type of money what they invest in these companies is very small. So we end up, with some junior partner, who is on our board, nominated on the board, and most of the time it used to be, the boardroom session was a classroom session for me. And then, of course, there is not such big follow-ups and all that, because this is a small investment for people like Axel and all that. So that way. So while on the other side, in the second company, it was really downtime, and we did not want to raise money until we get the C certificate, because that was the only thing which could add value. And whomever we met, they said, "Oh, we are applied for CE certification. Okay, come to us, as soon as you get the certification." So that was the thing, because they saw this as a very risky proposition. So, and then CE certificate comes, along with COVID, and then we are into a sort of a different. So here we have raised money through debt model, and we have. The debt-based funding. So with that, so we will go for a Series A. We are some due diligence is already happening, and now we see that there are some people coming forward to invest.
All the best. Okay, so we need to close now. Satya, you have any last points? Otherwise, I wanted to also ask each of them to tell us couple of things, which I'll come to. First, you. Yeah.
So why don't you tell what they need to tell us, and then I'll add one more to it, and then after that, we can thank, and then we can go.
By the way, thank you, everybody. Thanks for the patience. So I want to request you to tell us two things. One is, of course, if people are aiming to scale their companies, which most of our startups are, what are those, that one thing which you think they should take care of now? And the second thing is, when you look back, were there some things which you felt, you wish you had known when you got started and should have worked on right from day one, and that is something which you would like to advise our startups as well? Yeah. Satya.
And the third thing is, again, drawing upon what Mudit said, and I know personally Shyam, Yogesh, and others, is how now that, say, you have scaled up, or or in the mezzanine layer of scaling up, or really full scale up, doesn't matter. How has your life changed? How are you managing time? Now, could that would be a very interesting nugget for all of us, including our cohort. Who goes first?
Maybe Budit.
My ears is open. So,
Mudit, Yogesh, Aditya, and then we'll close with Shyam.
Okay.
So I'll answer the last question first. That how the life changes. As Dr. Premnath had said that life of an entrepreneur is basically the goalpost keeps changing. So it's like driving at night. Moment you get to next turn, you see that there is one more ahead. So it gets exciting in that way that it always keeps you on toes. But at all given points, you require same set of zeal, enthusiasm, energy. It's not ever going to go into autopilot, right? So that's a myth. So you always have to be on top of your game. And also at certain point also it becomes that you heading the organization, you also need to also upgrade yourself very rapidly as well, right? So while we are talking scale up, the scale up doesn't happen to just the company, but imagine if you are CEO of the company as well, right? You need to really step up as CEO as well at every given point. And after a point, if if it is not happening, then also you have to let go. So all of those points are very critical. What were other questions, Dr. Premnath?
Yeah, no, I wanted you to tell me if there is one piece of advice you want to give for people who want to plan for scale up right now, which many of them want to. And the second thing was, when you look back, were there some things which you didn't think were that important but turned out to be very important, and you want to alert people to that aspect of an entrepreneur's journey?
So I would say, again, piece of advice, I think, go for it, basically, right? It's not, I don't know, for health tech, med tech, pharma, algorithms, right? It's such an exciting time for, being alive industry. It's almost like, industrial revolution time in healthcare right now. So this is the time to get your product in the market and really create that impact. We have seen one of the biggest pandemic, hopefully it's ended, right? But it has really made everyone aware, and everyone is ready to invest in their health, their own health, institutions and all that, right? So it's a great time to be in this space right now. So just do it, right? And just be aware, keep measuring, keep improving. That's the whole point. What I could have probably done better, right? Actually, as soon as I come to know that, I just improve that mistake, right? It's never a bad time to improve your mistake on, right? So probably a lot of things I would say, but one thing which I did mention, which may have reduced our GTM, right, was probably regulations. If that was done right from inception, we won't have had to redo the entire product again and again. So yeah, that's something which we need to keep in mind.
Yep. I think Yogesh is next.
So if you're thinking about scale, disclose everything to the customer and get the order. So if you don't have US FDA, it's okay. Actually, I have tried this. I was closing a very big deal in pharma company, where they were very adamant that you should have US FDA certification because your competitor has. And my team was not able to crack the deal, so they invited me. Sir, why don't you come? And so I said, okay, we have US FDA device which is going to be up and in 1 month, but it will cost you 30% extra. As soon as I said, they said, okay, it is the same exact device. Yes. They said, no, then we are fine with this device, which is CE approved. So also know that this is a never ending trap the customer wants and desire. You have to make sure that you fully disclose, and that should be sufficient for the customer. Find that customer out there. He is out there. I think that would be, he will make you scale. I mean, find that customer who will give you the order which you are scared of taking. Once you take that order, that's where your scale will start. So that is my advice. what would I change is I wish I would have I mean started little earlier, though I started in my med school only. If I started in my second year, I would have made it even bigger. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think Satya also wanted to ask you about how you manage your time, and
So there are both things where actually you now have more control of your time. So basically you can say I want to hold this meeting in second half because I want to drop my son somewhere. But at the same time you'll have to fly to US to just attend some talk show because your parent won't show that they are doing some good work in India. So it has, I mean, as everything else. Secondly, you should you take bigger decisions. I think that is something which happens, and you let go smaller decisions. So every in I remember I used to interfere in color of the button box, the font of the this. Like I mean, right now I just take bigger decision. Ki make this device. I am going to sell this, and I let the design team, R&D team take over and put in their thought process according to our brand guidance. So uh, I think taking smaller number of decisions is what you adapt to, because taking decisions make you really tiring. I don't know whether this would make sense to you guys now, but maybe later on it will. Uh, yeah, I think that is the
yeah,
time
I
you have
agree
more
with you.
control, and you have more control
Yeah,
of your time.
Aditya. Yeah.
Yeah, so I will answer Satya's question first. In terms of managing the time, I believe it is important to have, I mean, in my case, to have a great team of co-founders and the rest of the team that we have put in place, and primarily delegating the responsibilities. I mean, right now, for example, I am sitting here in the US working on setting up the US operations. The only can do that is because our team is functioning. It's a well-oiled machine sitting in India. We have a 21-member team, right from the executive management, to product development, to regulatory, to sales. So they know what they are doing. So having a great team of co-founders and a management team and the rest of the team is extremely important, which helps to me as a CEO to take care of the scaling up side of things, which is why I'm in the US currently. So that to me is how I manage my time. Kind of repeating what Yogesh said, definitely leaving the smaller decisions and not getting into the way of every decision, because otherwise the important thing for me to ensure has been that I don't become the gating, the gate, which is kind of,
Yeah,
or the bottleneck,
bottleneck.
essentially,
Yeah, yeah.
essentially where things come and stop and things are not moving ahead. So that's on the time management side. As far as the last word to my thing would be, is to think through in advance where you want to go, which markets you want to get into, which regulatory approvals you need, and because that is going to determine and lay out the course for the future. And it is okay. I mean, thoda chota muh badi baat lagega, but it is okay to have think through and think big and think large at the early standpoint. And because when you think at that particular scale, at least you'll hit somewhere less, because you're never going to hit that particular level, right? I mean, the one thing that you will always notice is that none of your business plans are ever going to go right. You're going to have to pivot, you're going to have to make changes, the market will make you change, the customers will make you change, the regulations will make you change, COVID will make you change. All of that is there. So if right from the inception, if you think big on a large scale, the probability and statistical probability of hitting closer to that is going to be more. So that is my last word in terms of from a scale up standpoint.
Sure. Thank you, Aditya. I think Sham, I think it's your turn.
Yeah, it's a managing time is a very, very tricky thing. I think with a lot of other interests, if you are, for me, I have equal interest in the academic research and also my companies. So I have, from the beginning itself, I have decided that, okay, I will only do this, and I kept my partner informed from the beginning. Like, in Forus, I said, Casey, you're going to be the CEO and you're going to take care of this. in the initial head-end innovation, I'm going to play a big role and put the team together, get the things out, but then I'm going to walk out and you have to take care of it. So I've been, set the expectation at the partnership level itself that, okay, we do this. Whereas in case of the other company where, we have a long lead time, even though I want to not get into the too much of details and all that, people their stamina, the risk appetite, is different for different partners. So the promoter group slowly one by one have got dropped out, and now I have everything on my head. Like, now there is some business opportunity, but then they are not in touch with the thing. So they say, well, you are running the show. You just tell what we have to do. That's it. So that way, some of these things I think also depends on the situation. And however, well, we might have planned things. I think the reality is going to hit us. And so that's the thing. So I keep myself away from all these, as what that Yogesh was telling, and we don't get into the nitty-gritty of smaller things. So even though I love to be very technical and get into details, I try to keep myself a little away and still get to know, what's happening, and try to influence in some way in reviews and things like that, so that they get a more formal input. So that's how I've been managing my time between all the.
Yeah, and I think
And of course,
in
a
all
lot of
cases,
academic, yeah.
yeah, in all cases, I think the entrepreneur is always the last man standing, right? The founder. So
Exactly.
last man or woman standing there,
Yeah.
carrying, the baby through, right? Okay. Anyway, thank you so much. I think this has been a very interesting discussion. Thank you so much. And Satya, thank you for planning this event so thoroughly. I think over to you, and I will keep quiet now.
No, I think nothing more to say. We spent 2.5 hours. First thing is thanks to all the friends here, panelists, Aditya getting up early in the morning, Mudit, Sham, Yogesh trying to, crack a deal while being on this webinar, so all of that just goes to show how giving back by our live entrepreneurs who are still doing things and still giving the time to us is very appreciable. I know them personally. I always remain a fan of them, and it's just amazing energy that that you bring to the whole of ecosystem. I think Shyam mentioned about whether the ecosystem is ready or not. I think the very fact that we have people giving their time while they are scratching their head for 35 locations and 200 people all the time within the last 6 months is something that is incredible. So thanks to all of you and the cohort. I think all of you are entrepreneurs. I believe in being entrepreneurial, whether you are an incubation manager or working in the government or working in the nonprofit, or wherever you are. So being entrepreneurial is something that I've learned from the startups I have interacted with. And those startups that are part of cohort, thank you so much. You have stayed along with us to hear over the last 3 panels, and especially this panel, which is the longest, I think, 2.5 hours. And finally, I cannot end it without thanking Mugdha and Anmol, and of course, Premnath. Premnath yesterday was doing, along with his team, of course, a technology transfer meeting that he had, an institution from Italy showcasing their technology, somebody from IIT Delhi, and today again so that's again the energy that Premnath brings, and I am just absolutely happy to be interacting with all of you. So thank you so much, and to all the members of the Venture Center team who are in the background, who put out the social media, and who do the newsletters. Everything comes together when we have a 2.5 hour program. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Satya.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
all.
Bye.